Good evening and welcome to the King George County Board of Supervisors and Service Authority for August 20th, 2024. Called to order at 5:33.
Sorry. They'll call to order for the Board of Directors for the Service Authority.
The invocation will be led by Supervisor Davis. Please rise and then stay standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Dear Lord, we thank you for this day. We thank you for a chance to just come together as a community to go over the business of the community. We just ask for your guidance in this. But we ask for your peace in these days, just to come over us as coming into election season. And it's a rough economy in our country, and the country itself seems to be divided. Lord, we know that you're always aware and that you're never taken blindsided by anything. We just ask that you continue to move and bless us. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Amen. To the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Are there any amendments to the agenda?
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Good, sir.
So I would like to add one item where I introduce some new staff members, and I would request to move the First Responders Appreciation Day proclamation in the 75th anniversary of the dedication of the Ralph Bunche High School resolution up and before the first public comment, sir.
Okay, we'll do. Anybody have a problem with that? Everybody good with that? Consensus? Okay, we will do that. You want to go ahead?
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. So it's been a busy couple weeks at the county here, upping some of our staff members, and I'm looking in the audience and I see a couple of our the folks who are helping rebuild the community development department. So all in all, we've had Jamil Carr, hired him in finance, Austin Wessel also in finance, Kyle Wagner, Kyle Kritzer, both in community development, Kyasia Turner in administration, and then we have is Kyasia here still? No. Oh, okay. So, and we have two individuals in the front row I'd like to introduce, I know personally. Ms. Kelly LeDuc, she is the new community development director. Kelly brings over 20 years experience in the planning and zoning world. And then we have Mr. Kenny Vaughn. Kenny Vaughn is the new zoning administrator. Kenny has also over 20 years experience in the planning and zoning world. So these two faces you'll see a lot in the community development department, and I think we're going to see some drastic changes there in a good way. Both of them are tested individuals, and I look forward to working with them.
Well, welcome. Hang on.
Thank you. I'm going to come down to the podium for the next two presentations.
Yeah.
Okay. So before you tonight I have a proclamation, and this is entitled First Responder Appreciation Day. I'm going to read it for the board and for the public. Whereas King George County, Virginia, volunteer and career first responders including law enforcement officers, firefighters, paramedics, emergency medical technicians, and 911 dispatchers who bravely and selfishly risk their lives every day to protect families, visitors, and businesses. And whereas first responders do not hesitate to risk their own lives in order to save the lives of others, and their commitment to continue training, skill enhancement, and interagency coordination make them vital members of our community. And whereas the life of a first responder requires the sacrifice of time with family, as well as physical and mental stress. And whereas acts of kindness and appreciation from citizens for first responders provide them needed encouragement and support to confront the dangerous and uncertain situations they face every day. And whereas the Fredericksburg Region Chamber of Commerce, in partnership with community businesses, is honoring all regional first responders on Wednesday, August 21, 2024, during the First Responders Appreciation Breakfast in Fredericksburg, Virginia. And now, therefore, be it proclaimed that the King George County Board of Supervisors hereby proclaim August 21, 2024 as First Responder Day in King George County in an effort to recognize and celebrate the county's first responders, and encourages all citizens to take time out of their day to show first responders and their families how much they are valued for the service to the community. Adopted this 21st day of August 2024 by Chair T.C. Collins, Board of Supervisors. Gentlemen, I want to present each of you a copy. Thank you. Would you like to say anything? All right, so I say we give the first responders a nice round of applause for their service. So it's been requested if we could get the first responders in front of the board for a quick photo op.
Yes, sir. Would we be able to have some introductions, because I see faces I haven't never seen before? Please.
Sheriff, Sheriff, would you like to come to? Yeah, there you go.
Is Terrence Collins here?
Yes, he is. So, Deputy Megan Smith, she's actually receiving an award tomorrow. Now, and I'll read that in my constitutional officer's report. Tyler Thompson, Sergeant Zeb Johnson, Kelly Houlihan, Carrie Barnes, Cassidy Gardner with Animal Control, Sergeant Fields, Jason Church runs Animal Control, Tyler Nyman, one of my canine officers, Ryan Rothman, one of my senior deputies, Communications Officer Cameron, Communications Officer Savannah, one of my school resource officers, Deputy Jefferson, and here's your protege, T.J. Collins, Derek Vanetta, Lieutenant Wharton, Detective Patola, School Resource Officer Sergeant Shriver, Lieutenant Moneyhun, Detective Lieutenant Massey, Sergeant Furlong, Chad Kahn, our first sergeant, Lieutenant Govan, who oversees courts, and Captain Weston is my second.
All right, we just had a few extra show up, and we have a firefighter EMT Bentley Strickland. This is his first day on shift from graduating the academy. Battalion Chief Dan Dixon, Lieutenant Kevin Cook, Driver Operator Jeffrey Knight. We have firefighter EMT Elliot Ganson, Lieutenant Matthew Calloway, firefighter EMT Matthew Hossel, and Deputy Chief Jay Henson, and Kristen Beverly. So, any more out there? All right, okay. So we were out busy running calls, writing as we were getting prepared for this. So thank you to the board supporting this. Thank you.
The podium's in it, but we're good.
Thank you so much.
On my glasses tonight, I didn't. No, I'm like the old man with the menu, it just point.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I have one more presentation.
Yes, sir.
So I have before you a resolution of the King George County Board of Supervisors recognizing the 75th anniversary of the dedication of Ralph Bunche High School. Whereas Ralph Bunche High School was constructed as a result of Margaret Smith et al. Versus School Board of King George, Virginia et al. Richmond Civil Action number 631. And whereas Ralph Bunche High School replaced King George Training School, originally called Edge Hill Training School, built in 1916. And whereas Ralph Bunche High School was named in honor of Dr. Ralph Bunche, a notable scholar, statesman, and recipient of the Nobel Peace Prize in 1950. And whereas Ralph Bunche High School was dedicated on September 2nd, 1949, whereas Ralph Bunche High School served African American students until 1968 upon full integration of King George County schools, and whereas the Ralph Bunche Alumni Association was established in 1975 to preserve the heritage and legacy of Ralph Bunche High School, and whereas Ralph Bunche High School was listed on the National Register of Historic Places on May 1, 2006, and whereas September 2, 2024 marks the 75th anniversary of the dedication of Ralph Bunche High School. Now therefore be it resolved that the King George County Board of Supervisors hereby declares September 2nd, 2024 as Ralph Bunche High School dedication anniversary day in King George County, adopted by the King George County Board of Supervisors on the 20th day of August, 2024, signed Mr. T.C. Collins, Chairman, King George County Board of Supervisors. I'll stay in this.
Yeah. All right.
All right, y'all can sit down.
Don't time me. Good evening, everyone. Thank you. As we, the Ralph Bunche Alumni Association, are indeed grateful and feel privileged to accept this Board of Supervisors resolution for the 75th anniversary of Ralph Bunche High School. We also want to acknowledge the Ralph Bunche Advisory Committee, the King George School Board, county churches, proprietors, families, and friends who have demonstrated their commitment in helping Ralph Bunche Alumni Association fulfill the mission of restoring and preserving the legendary and historic Ralph Bunche High School. We have accomplished much, but there is much more to be done. We extend an invitation to all concerned citizens and county residents to join us in this Ralph Bunche and Visualize and Rise endeavor. I'd like to share a few facts with you, and I won't be brief. Since August 22, 1975, which was the inception of the Ralph Bunche Alumni Association, we have lost 53 members, but we've also gained 80 new members. And Mr. T.C. Collins is one of our most recent. We have acquired 2 lifetime corporate memberships, CNF Bank and the Restoration Worship Center. 75 years is a long time to go back, and we still have some of those graduates in the audience tonight. Others are still with us, but sick and shut in and can't be here. So I just like to acknowledge the ones that are here. Well, we have in our membership, we have 3 from 1950. They're not here tonight. 1951, we have 2 members. And 1952, we have Mildred Ashton Holmes from the class of 52. Isn't that something? Some of you weren't even born, were you? Okay. The class of 53, we have 3 members. The class of 54, we have 1 member. She's not here either. And in class of 55, there were 3 members, one of which was a founder of the Ralph Bunche Alumni Association. Class of 56, we have 3 members, and Barbara Jackson Richards was another founder. So we have, of the 7 founders, only 2 remain. Thank God for that. The class of 57, there are 2 members. The class of 58, there are 5 members. The class of 59, we have Marva Jefferson Smith, class of 59. The class of 1960, Vernell Ashton. Where are you? Right here. Vernell Ashton. The class of 61, there are 2 members, one of which is Kelly Jefferson, my brother-in-law. And the class of 62, there are 7 members. The class of 63, there are 2. The class of 64, we have 5 members. And the class of 65, they have 13 members, but we got Ernestine Jordan Jefferson holding it down for the class of 65. Thank you. And class of 66, there are 5 members. The class of 67, there are 3 members. And I'm one of those 3 from 67. And for the class of 68, there are 2 members. Well, we also have members in Congress who stood with us and spoke the Ralph Bunche High School history into the congressional record. Rob Whitman did that, and we're so grateful. The U.S. Coast Guard has encouraged us to stand steady and persevere. So, okay, King George, thank you for your support, encouragement, advice, and every way you make a difference. Gratefully yours, the Ralph Bunche Alumni Association.
Thank you. Would you like to come? Jordan, would you like to come forward for a photo?
Sir?
Photograph.
Everybody. All right. All right. Ready? 1, 2, 3. All right. Perfect. Thank y'all.
Alrighty, well, thank you. Thank you so much. We will now open public comment. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes per person. In order to afford everyone an opportunity to speak, please provide your full name, your district, when submitting your public comment so it can be properly included in the public record. Reverend Davis?
Good evening. I'm Pastor Davis. Living in Dalvin, voting in Dalvin District, and 55 and 56, 60s. That's back when I read the Bible in school. They'll all probably remember that. Well, I've been reading the Bible and thanking the board for their good job. And so I've been reading the Bible in board meetings. I didn't write this book, I just read it. And so we've been under attack, some because of doing this in school board meetings, and of course in this meeting. And the board's been attacked for being Christians, I believe, sometimes. So anyway, I'm going to read a verse. The Bible says in Psalm 14 in verse number 1, the fool have said in his heart, we said before, the heart of the problem is the problem with the heart. There's no God. Or he's saying, there's no God for me, please. I don't want to recognize the fact that there is a God. They are corrupt. They have done abominable works. There is none that doeth good, it says Psalm 14 and verse number 1. I just want to ask you tonight, have you ever noticed that the atheists don't hate leprechauns? They don't hate fairies or unicorns. They don't hate Peter Pan. They don't hate Tinkerbell. You know why? Because they're not real. The problem is today that God is very real. And so they sure do hate God. They hate the Bible, the atheist. And they hate the name of Jesus, and they hate the Christian. They hate the Bible. I was amazed last night at a school board meeting, and one of the teachers got up in the school board meeting last night and said she'd rather for her children to read pornography than read the Bible. That's scary to me. And that's where we are many times in America. But they call us fools, and I can hardly wait until God lines up the fools to see what line they're standing in. And so I want to thank the board tonight for the opportunity to read the scriptures. And we do live in kind of weird times, strange times. We live in a time where people, they want a God without rules. They want salvation without atonement. They want liberty without accountability. They want freedom without responsibility, respect without character, sin without consequences. Man wants rewards without works. They want success without sacrifice. They want strength without stress and happiness without holiness. They want mercy without repentance, and they want heaven without a cross. They want joy without Jesus. They want grace without God. And they want Jesus without changing their lives. And so what amazes me is that people want to miss hell, but they don't want to trust the Lord. And I'm just thankful for the board tonight. I thank you for the work you're doing. And I'm thankful that you allow me to come in and read the scriptures. And I'm hoping other preachers will get involved. I've invited others, but nobody seems to be interested. But anyway, we appreciate you. Thank you. God bless and have a good evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Level?
Hi, my name is Ana Maria Lobo. I live in Presidential Lakes. I want to thank you to the supervisors for your service to the community. I also want to know how the service authority is doing since you take control of it. I know it's only been 8 months, but have you tried to pay down the debt? It seems to me like you only spend money. Remember, you ran an election and keeping taxes low and spending down. You should fix things that are needed and pay down the debt and the fines you have before. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else for public comment? Yes, sir. Come forth. Be recognized.
Thank you. My name's Marvin Spring, and I am from Westmoreland County. I just wanted to read and to encourage you. It's just to encourage all board members. For everything that comes before you, I just hope that you will think of what I'm going to read and make your decision based upon what I'm reading. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whoever should believe in him should not perish but have life everlasting. But God commendeth his love for us in that while we were yet sinners, his Christ, his Son, died for us. As it is written, there are none righteous, no, not one. The wages of sin is death, but the gift of God is eternal life through his Son, Jesus Christ. For the wages of sin, as we said, are death. And again, yet I delivered unto you first of all of that which I received, which was Christ, who died for our sins according to the Scriptures, and that he was buried, and that he rose again according to the Scriptures on the third day. For by grace we are all saved, and it is not that work of ourselves. It is a gift of God, not of works, lest any man should boast. If thou shalt confess with thy mouth the Lord Jesus, and shalt believe in thine heart that God hath raised him from the dead, we shall be saved. If we confess our sins, he is faithful and he is just to forgive our sins and to cleanse us from all unrighteousness. Behold, I stand at the door and knock. If any man hear my voice and open the door, I will come in with him and sup with him and he with me. I read from the back of a little testament here, the scriptures. I hope that you would help this get back into the school system. We all, if you've ever read anything out of the Quran, chapter 3, verse 15 says, Allah is the deceiver of all deceivers. Now, with that being said, we need to bring the truth back into our school systems, and we need to make a stand against the system of Islam, which is trying to corrode our Christian belief that this nation was founded on. And that's all I've got to say. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else in the audience who would like to speak at this time? Mr. Dines, is there anyone online?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Is there any written comments received from the board? Seeing none, I will close public comment. Reports of members of the board. You want to do Lee?
Sure, I'll be quick. I don't have much for the to report for this week. It's been a slow week, but I do want to thank everybody for coming out, and to the folks of the Ralph Bunch Alumni Association. It's a long time you guys have been here in the county, and it shows a big commitment to this county. It's one reason I agreed to do this job up here is because I want to make things better in this county from the service authority perspective. So I commend all of you, and that was a great award and words from your group this evening. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
I just want to make a clarification. I've had some folks get a little confused about Mr. Robotham being on this and giving public comment. He's a member of the Service Authority, and we have him go first or allow him so he can give his report before the rest of the Board of Supervisors. So I just wanted to clarify everybody why he's up here. He is one of the Board of Directors for those that have asked that question. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bender. Mr. Davis?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Number one, just thank everyone for coming out. Our fire and rescue and our police officers here in the community do a great job. I've had family members that have served there for years. I think I've known the past 3 sheriffs, and they've all been great. And it's just been a wonder what the team that they've built and the people that they brought in. They seem to always be high quality people. Pastor Davis, thank you so much. Miss Anna, thank you. And we have been paying down some of that debt on the service story. I'm sure that I'll let Ms. Bender get into some of that. Mr. Spring, is that correct? Was your name Mr. Spring? Westmoreland? Okay, great. I was going to just see if you knew Kaisha over here because y'all might be in a carpool now. She lives in Westmoreland too. I'm just giving her a hard time. Thank you for coming out. Thank you for coming to our community. Thank you for sharing. All the people, Ralph Bunch, thank you. It's especially those, I say it's because I love the people that kind of stay home and stay in King George too. And even if they move away and do whatever, and I kind of call Westmoreland is kind of tied into King George and Colonial Beach after all these years. The Northern Neck is kind of home to me. Wherever I go, I feel home. So I always enjoy being there. But thank you for being part of our history and for standing the test of time and for standing what was right and going through all that you went through to get here. I appreciate that very much. This week, I went to the Dalvin base. I got the tour. I took Mr. Stroud with me and just got to meet the heads of the base, the men in uniform and the people that aren't in uniform anymore. Just really went over some good ideas about how, a lot of our growth that's going on in our community, the more they grow, their growth causes pains for our community. And as far as, our infrastructure and our service authority and our traffic and our highways, and they were really willing to listen to some of those things about how we can partner together and how they can partner to help us with some of those things down there. And it's, I've asked Mr. Smart to kind of team up on that and meet with them soon and kind of go over some things and what they can do. It shouldn't just fall on all of us as tax citizens and people who live in King George as they grow and we pick up the pain of that growth. We want them to grow, but we need them, they've been a great partner for years. I remember back in the early 70s and the 80s. I think it happened again in the 90s that they were on the chop list of bases to be cut down, and King George was very scared at the time. I can tell you right now that there's so much stuff going on there right now that they're not really concerned about that. They are a big part of our military, a big part of our defense, and it doesn't seem like they're going anywhere anytime soon. One of my favorite things this week was on Friday. I got to go to the fire, I guess it's called the fire promotion celebration, where our fire officers who came out of training and will now be stepping into our force were there. And then I got to see some of the guys who have been in that department for a while get elevated and get promoted. And it seemed to be Mr. Moody's done a good job. There's some good people there, and it seems like he's bringing some high quality men and ladies, and they're doing a really good job. Saturday, if you missed it, we did a town hall. Sully will probably speak more to that. And we had, Ed from the school board was there. We had a great turnout. It was probably at least 30 so people there. And maybe next time, we also are having one again tomorrow night at 6 at the Smoot Library as well. And it was just we sat down. It wasn't us putting on a performance. We just sat down in some chairs, and people sat down in chairs, and they generally just sat there, and it was very uniform. Just asked us questions. There was no shouting or yelling, and people that generally had concerns about things in the community, and people that came out just to say thank you. And it was really, really good and really warming. And whether we agree on things or not, I welcome you to come out to those things and express yourself, because I do want to hear what people in the community have to say. And I also want a chance to relay to you guys some of the things that we're working on, because it's some things that people just don't know. There were some people that came there with questions and concerns, and they were like, oh, we had no idea that had taken place, that you guys were working on that. And that's something that we're working on too. We've talked about in the past, just being a better way to communicate with you guys besides saying, we'll go watch a board meeting, which it could be very boring and time consuming. And, there's got to be a way for us to get the information that's imperative to you out to you. Thank you again for caring about your town and just showing up tonight and just being here and being part of this. We appreciate that.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Mr. Stroud?
Thank you, sir. So I'd like to, again, thank everybody that came out tonight. Pastor Davis, that was possibly your best words yet. Miss Santa Marie, thank you for holding us accountable. Don't stop doing that, ma'am. Mr. Marvin Sprin, thank you for making a drive. I appreciate your comments. So I'd like to also thank our first responders. The threats that they face are real, and they're the ones that stand to watch. So we have our military that are deployed forward, but here at home, a lot of people don't think about their safety, and they drive around, especially in King George, where I think we feel really safe compared to other areas. Whether you're going to a store or just going for a walk with your family in King George, you feel safe. You feel safe from whenever something happens at your house, you need the first responders to come there and help you. Those guys make a lot of calls, as you guys know. You hear the sirens all the time. But we feel safe thanks to the people that are under the leadership of Sheriff Giles and Chief Moody, and appreciate everything that they do. I know them both personally, and I know that how they treat their people and how important that is. And I appreciate it. Thank you, guys. I attended the South Potomac Civilian Military Community Relations Executive Council Teams meeting, and really it was that was on August 15th with Captain Townsend and Mayor Paulin and Mr. Andrew Ravelis. And it was really just setting the agenda for the meeting on 12 September at Indian Head, which is the next Community Comrail event. And then, as Mr. Davis mentioned, on Friday, we met with Captain Townsend, who's the commanding officer of NSC South Potomac, Commander Lusk is XO, Mr. Stanley, their installation program integrator, which is like their chief of staff, Mr. Andrew Ravelis, and Mr. Adam Lynch, the community planning and liaison officer. They toured us around the base, and we got to see some things I haven't seen before. I've been over a number of times, but there's some really cool things they're doing over there, and they're growing. They've done a lot of growing, and rightfully so. I'm very proud
of the people that we have here in the community and the people that we have at Dahlgren and the work they're doing. And I think maybe some people don't realize it if you don't watch the news, but there's a war going on right now in the Red Sea, and our Navy's at war, and they haven't been at war like this in a long time, but they fight daily. So they're being directly supported by our community and by the folks that are over at Dahlgren. And a lot of people don't think about it daily. Now, I wore the uniform 23 years, so, you know, it was just the way of life. But out here, it's easy to get caught up in life and maybe not think about those people that are over there that are away from their families and are in harm's way. And it's not just the Navy, but whenever you know or you're aware of the things you're going on at Dahlgren, even though they're not openly communicated, but they're supporting our war fighters forward, not just the Navy, but other branches. As Mr. Davis said, we have the opportunity to really do a lot more for our military here in the county. There's a lot of capabilities that we could bring to Dahlgren that Dahlgren has to offer other branches of the military with our little geographic space over there. But Captain Townsend also, he came from Fort Worth, the base down there, which had a lot of Marines on it. And he worked very closely with the mayor down there. And he was telling us about his experience with the Defense Economic Adjustment Fund in Texas and the innovative readiness training that the Marines down there and the reservists did. They deployed as far away as Alaska to do things, but they also did things in the community in Fort Worth. So we want to look and see how we can take advantage of those programs here in the county to benefit us, maybe even help them with things like the service authority, because the engineers build that stuff. So during OIF, our military and our Corps of Engineers was building power plants and stuff in Iraq and these other countries. So maybe we can look and see if they can benefit our county here somehow. But it was a really good time, and we appreciate them inviting us over and working with us, and thank them. I know we're supposed to get or provide the opportunity for Mr. Beal. I don't know if he's here tonight, but VDOT was on the agenda. But I'd like to take a moment to compliment the work that the VDOT is doing over off Millbank. If you live down that way or been down that way, they've done a lot of work down there, and it looks the best Millbank's ever looked. They widened the road, they built up the shoulder, and what they did for the driveways over there, the transition from the road to the driveways is really good work. So, and it makes a big difference for our people that live over there. We've got other areas that need to be fixed in the county and in James Madison District, but that is a huge change that was made, and they acted on some of our requests, mine specifically, and I appreciate that. I think that's all I've got to say now, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. I want to echo my colleagues' comments that I won't go through everybody's name and stuff, but I do really appreciate y'all coming, and I especially want to acknowledge the first responders. The work you do is greatly appreciated. I characterize it when we're running from or hiding from danger, you are the people that are running toward it to take care of it for us. So I really appreciate that. Had a few meetings over the last couple of weeks. Got to meet on August the 7th with members of the Potomac Tech Bridge and some local community folks that have an idea for an innovation incubator. I've talked about that at some of the previous meetings, so still continuing to try to forward that idea. And also on Saturday, as Mr. Davis alluded to, we did have a nice little town hall. This was kind of different. In the past, the few that we've had so far, we've had 5 or 6 people. I was a little bit nervous when I showed up 15 minutes early and people were lined up outside. We had about 30 folks show up, but like you said, it was great. We had across the political spectrum, different ideas, and everybody got to talk and exchange and share. So I really appreciated that. It was fun. Got to go to the school board meeting last night. That maybe wasn't as fun. Another town hall meeting tomorrow night at the library. That's going to run from 6 to 8. So please, if you didn't get a chance to join us on Saturday, come on out to, tomorrow night. And then finally on the 22nd, so Thursday from 4 to 7, also at the library, the Gibson Solar Project is going to be having another one of their town hall meetings to talk about the potential to bring a solar farm into the county. What else? Oh, one of the things I've really enjoyed about this job, running for it and also doing it, is just getting to meet some cool people. And after the somewhere during the school board meeting last night, I got to talk with a sweet lady that I met along the way, and she lives somewhere different on the political spectrum than I do. And it was fun talking to her because she's like, you and I probably don't agree on much. I was like, I want to stop you. We probably agree on way more than you think we do. To fix our county, we probably got 10,000 things to do. And there's some things on the periphery that I may want one way, you may want another. On the other periphery, there may be some stuff that you want one way and I want the other. But in the middle, there's 1,000 things we probably agree on. We're probably lockstep. Let's all concentrate on that. It'll take 3 to 5 years to get all the minimum to get those things fixed. But in there, we're going to find some common ground on those other things that we may not agree on. So we probably agree on a lot more stuff than folks realize. But the only way we can do that is communicate and talk to one another. She's a sweet lady. She's really cool. So I'm looking forward to spending more time with her, trying to understand her perspective, try to share my perspective with her. Thank y'all for coming out tonight. Thank you, those of you that could come out on Saturday, those that may be planning to come out tomorrow night. Thank you for that. That communication, that working back and forth, that's how we make our community better. Y'all have a good night.
Thank you, Mr. Sullins. Ms. Bender?
All right, thank you very much. I actually wrote mine down this time because I wanted to make sure I hit on a lot of points on one particular, so I'll try to go through this quickly. Congratulations to our new recruitment class at Fire and Rescue and those that earned promotions. Thank you for your service and protection to the families of King George and those that traverse our roads. I also wanted to say good luck to the students and teachers and staff on the 2024-25 school year. I've heard only positive things about the new transition day for kindergarten, 6th grade, and 9th graders. As a parent of a 9th grader, it was appreciated the plan that was implemented to help students be more at ease for their first day in a new building, because that can be quite challenging and overwhelming. I will talk more about the Service Authority during the Board of Directors meeting in a report, so I'll skip over that. And at the end of last week, I attended the VACA, which is the Virginia Association of County Officials Summer Summit in Richmond, where I serve on the Board of Directors. At the conference, many topics were covered, but a preview of legislation being bandied about for the next session was discussed. And a preview of the 2025 Virginia governor's race was also on display with Attorney General Jason Miyares, I hope I pronounced that right, Lieutenant Governor Winsome Sears, and Representative Abigail Spanberger addressed the audience. There was many topics covered. I'm just going to give some highlights. Virginians need to take care of home first. They have to balance the budget and not spend more than one can pay for. The economic challenges in the current inflationary climate we live in need always to be at the forefront. Making sure the county is financially secure, on a better path, and making wise decisions is always something to be mindful of. We need to be preemptive and don't be comfortable, and think long-term and plan accordingly. And remember, you are elected by the residents of your locality, and you need to advocate for their interests to the best of your ability. Though always keep in mind that everything is not believable on Facebook or in the media. There is truth mixed with opinion, and if you have a question, just call or email any of us, and we can have a conversation. A preview of more coming attractions in the next general legislative session includes pathways for affordable workforce or generational housing, education, reducing regulations on the state level, AI and emerging technologies, energy consumption, data centers, solar farms, and the topic of the grid instability. It is our obligation as officials to protect citizens with guardrails, and we need to use all the tools available to us to solve problems, but we need to choose. And as our college age and high school students may remember, the right tool for the job. Thank you, Bob the Builder. I always remembered that one. Some interesting takeaways I came back were in conversations with my colleagues there. Many localities are struggling with the pay increases needed to retain employees since COVID. For schools, fire and EMS, and sheriff's departments, the increase of nearly 40% in wages as compared to the average salary of all their staff members is on an unsustainable trajectory. And is not just salary, it is hours, workload, extra duties, social media, et cetera, helping to drain the staff. The need for transparency and communication on a level never seen before due to social media, and the constant need to feed the beast for information. The drug crisis and the new requirement for localities to basically create a pharmacy in every ambulance is an emerging concern all across the Commonwealth, and it will be put a strain on our services and finances in the future. I did have an opportunity to speak with a representative from DCR, the Department of Conservation and Recreation, about opportunities the Service Authority may have to apply for support under the Flood Resilience Program. Also, on the county side, we can apply for assistance concerning the flooding problem in Bayberry and on Potomac Drive. I also spoke with Representative Spanberger about the house we acquired in the land swap for the Harry Nice Bridge. And I would like to ask our county administrator, Mr. Smolik, and my colleagues, if we could have on the further agenda a future discussion about pursuing the ability to sell the property and put the money towards our parks. And why this is important is because of the land swap, and that the land that was acquired was, we made a swap with part of Wayside to build the new bridge, and that land was under something called the Federal Parks to Land Program, which switched over to that house in the 166 acres at Barnesfield that has all these restrictions. And so the ask would be to remove the restrictions so that we could sell the house and put that money towards improving our parks. So Mr. Smolnik, I was going to ask my colleagues if that we had to have that discussion on a future agenda to maybe draft a letter to Representative Spanberger's office to have her maybe consider that.
Is there a consensus? That's it?
Mm-hmm.
I'll discuss it.
All right, thank you. Just catch up to where I was. Last two things. It was also interesting to hear, some of you might know, but starting a long time ago, I think it was maybe 2016, and a former colleague started something sort of in a gentleman's agreement of a rotating chair so that every board member has one chance to be a chair and every district is represented as the chair. It's interesting, King George was sort of an outlier, but my colleagues were talking about how a lot of localities are now doing that and implementing where they switch chairs, except for those communities that actually elect their chair or the mayor. So it was kind of interesting to hear that it's actually spreading across the Commonwealth. And then the last thing, I will be holding a town hall on September 5th here in the Rivercombe Boardroom from 5 to 7 p.m. Come and have a conversation with me to answer any questions you may have concerning county business and the Service Authority. It will be an open forum, and I love to see you there. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bender. Thank you, folks from the Ralph Bunch, for coming tonight. And things are going well over there. Look forward to the Visualize and Rise continuing to be a partner over there and for our youth in the community center. Thanks for the first responders. Keep us safe on the roads, in our homes, and in our workplace. I'd like to direct some questions to the county administrator. Mr. Smolnik?
Yes, sir.
Are you familiar with Article 2 of the bylaws for the EDA?
I am, yes, sir.
And the last paragraph on the page is Secretary Treasurer shall have the custody of all funds and securities of the authority, deposit the same in the name of the authority in such banks or banks as the directors may time to time determine. Sign all checks, draft notes, orders for payment of money, and shall pay out and dispose of the same under the direction of the chairman. Are you familiar with that part of the bylaw?
Yes, sir, I am.
Did you write a check for $27,000 to the Expert Regional Alliance?
No, sir, I did not.
So, but you're the treasurer.
I am. I was appointed the treasurer by the EDA board. Yes, sir.
Okay. Do you know who wrote a check to the FRA?
I believe based on our last meeting, it was the chair, Ms. Gail Moore.
So it didn't come to you. I'll just say.
No, sir.
Are you also familiar with the EDA's minutes from June 13th, 2024?
Yes, sir.
Are you familiar with the July 11th, 2024?
I am, yes, sir.
Okay. And during that meeting, there was a budget line item for $27,000 to the Fredericksburg Regional Alliance. correct?
Yes, sir.
And also, did members of the EDA meet with Amazon?
I know they met with them, yes. Some of I think it was my initial meeting back in June. There were discussions between EDA board members and representatives with Amazon.
In the June 13th, 2024 meeting minutes, the chairman of the met with Birchwood, FRA, Stafford Commissioner of Revenue, and the Economic Director of AWS, trying to gather facts to put Facebook and doing an investigation in the regards to the information that was on Facebook. Do they have any investigative powers?
None that I'm aware of, sir.
So, are you familiar with the meeting that the Board of Supervisors had with the EDA?
Joint meeting, yes, sir.
And did you attend that meeting?
I did.
And do you recall the discussions in that meeting?
I believe I do recall the discussions, yes.
Do you recall the discussion specifically in regards to the FRA?
I do, yes.
Can you tell me what?
To summarize it, the Board of Supervisors, to the best of my knowledge, the Board of Supervisors directed the EDA board to cease and desist, reaching out through the FRA. The main point of contact for economic development projects was myself. Information would flow through me as the county administrator / economic development director.
Okay, thank you. I don't have any other questions for you. I'd like to make a motion to remove the members of the EDA.
Second.
Properly second. Is there any discussion?
Yes, I do have a couple questions. Mr. Smolnik, I did ask some of my colleagues at VACO about economic development. You have this background. Is it common for those members on the EDA? I mean, my other colleagues in other localities told me it is not. Usually they have the same mission, vision. It might differ a little bit, but they try to always be in line with the Board of Supervisors. Is that correct?
That is correct. Usually it's all the boards that I've worked for and the EDA boards, they're step and step, work in concert with one another. Same mission, same goals.
Okay, thank you.
So, Mr. Smolnik, so the EDA is fully aware that the Board of Supervisors is in negotiations with Amazon. Is that correct or incorrect?
They are correct. That is correct. Yes.
And they were told at that meeting, is this correct or incorrect, that they're hampering the negotiations with Amazon?
I believe they were instructed not to engage with the company directly.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion items?
Yes, I do have one more question. With this matter, how long do you have to reconstitute the EDA or to appoint new members?
So an EDA is necessary at the county level for financing. Now, to the best of my knowledge, we don't have any financing coming through, any EDA board in the very near future. The EDA right now is actually in a state of transition with, getting together their financials and rewriting their small business development grant program. So, if I think for the next couple of months, I don't see any pending financing going through the EDA. We should be able to get along and continue economic development efforts in the county. They are going strong. I'm receiving a lot of calls from developers and commercial entities alike interested in King George County. So I think the answer to your question is, can we continue our efforts in this short term without an EDA board until such time that new members are appointed? My answer would be yes. And
any member could reapply or apply to be on the EDA. They just contact their Board of Supervisors. Correct?
That is correct.
And then my last clarification, because I've asked this before, is what is the makeup? Because I think Mr. Sullins is at large, has more than one seat, correct?
I don't have the bylaws in front of me. I can't believe I can't recall. If we need a recess, I can grab them, but I don't have the EDA bylaws in front of me for a specific answer
I just wanted that because it's not just 5 seats.
No, there are some at large.
Okay, so I just wanted the public to know, so if anybody does apply, that there is more than who to reach out to.
Yes, ma'am.
But Ms. Bender, it doesn't really say in the bylaws how many there are. Anyhow,
I just for,
so you, Mr. Smolnik, you can handle the EDA until reappointments?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chair?
George?
Mr. Chairman, the only thing I was going to point out is that the statute does require you reappoints where you appoint someone else in place of the person that has been removed to fill their unexpired term. Doesn't give you a deadline on that, but it does require you to appoint a person to fill that unexpired term. So depending on your action, you would have to find folks to fill those terms and keep the EDA constituted. But again, doesn't say you have to do it in 60 days or 90 days, just that you have to do it.
Okay. Mr. Stroud?
Yes, sir. The minutes that we have in front of us from EDA, are these like public information?
Yes, sir.
Yes, that's a public meeting. Those are the minutes from a public meeting.
It's very clear in here that the EDA members were working against us, as is spoken in the meeting. And the wording I'm reading here is to negate some of the stuff we see on Facebook, like the performance agreement is different from everybody else's. We're trying to prove what is being said is correct or say, no, you missed the boat. Want an EDA to know we have been doing, want to know if it is your will, we will continue to do from the EDA perspective. If not, we can do this privately. So they're willing to do it privately. Yeah, so it's pretty astonishing. But I would also like to say I've been a Mr. Larry Emery from Total Machine. He's a business owner, successful business owner, trying to grow his business in the county, doing work for the government as well. He would like to be on the EDA. So that's one nomination there.
Okay, so is there any other discussion on the motion? By roll call, Mr. Davis?
Aye.
Mr. Stroud?
Aye.
Mr. Sullins?
Aye.
Ms. Bender?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. So, Mr. Smolnik, can you seize the funds that are currently there and any documents
Yes, sir.
in the county? Thank you, sir.
I do have.
Mr. As far as appointments at this time, Mr. Stroud, you had an appointment. Go ahead and do that now.
Yes, sir. I also have a question about the money, the check that was written to the FRA because we didn't approve it and it was written anyway. What happens to that? I mean, are we now members of the FRA? Should we start attending meetings there again? Or are we getting our money back?
Well, we'll have to talk to council and see what the best course of action is.
Aye, sir. Then my nomination for the EDA is Mr. Larry Emery from Total Machine.
Okay, is there a second? Properly second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. I have a nominee, Guy Booth.
Second.
Properly second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Is there any other nominations?
I did have one. I was going to put him up for appointment at the end of the year when my person was done. I would like to nominate Brian Gregan.
Second.
Properly second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. All right. Felons, do you have anybody at this time? Okay. Mr. Davis?
We were talking about the money that was paid to the FRA, but I do understand that there was $15,000 invested into a business to start in King George, and that business never started. So we basically, they gave the money to a business, $15,000 to help a new business start, and the business never came into fruition. I know we put in stop gates in place to stop that from happening again and milestones for them to hit, but I wonder if there's any legality in retrieving any of that money as well.
Mr. Stewart, can you give us any,
Mr. Chairman, only if there was a clawback provision with the grant that they gave them, or I have no reason to believe it was fraudulent or anything, but if they gave it to them with no clawback provision, then I'm sorry that money's probably gone.
does council have any opinion on the $27,000 to the FRA?
I'd like to look into it a little bit more and get some more details from Mr. Smolnik, but if they didn't have the authority to give that money, then I think we ought to try to get it back.
Well, Mr. Smolnik, you'll let us know what you all discuss and where to go from there. Alrighty, that's the end of my public comment. Next, we have issuance of warrants against the FY 23-24 budget. General checking account.
I'll make a motion to approve 0806.01 and 0806.02 of the consent agenda.
Second.
Properly second. So the 02 is the meeting minutes from July 16th and August 6th. There's a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Constitutional officers, Chair.
Mr. Chairman, I hate to interrupt you, but if you're appropriating money out of the checking account,
Yes,
you
sir,
gotta do
you're
a roll
correct.
call.
So let's, Ms. Bender, can you redo that motion?
Yes, I can. I will make a motion again for, like to approve as presented 0806.01 and 0806.02.
Okay, second.
Second.
Properly second. By roll call, Mr. Davis.
Aye.
Mr. Stroud.
Aye.
Mr. Sullins.
Aye.
Ms. Bender.
Aye.
The chair votes aye. Go ahead, Sheriff.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members of the board, first of all, I'd like to thank you for moving us up in the agenda for Mr. Smolik to present that award. It helps get me the deputies back out on the street. So I just want to tell you thank you for that. And also thank you for the kind words that each and every one of you spoke and in the recognition and for the first responders. It doesn't go unnoticed. I appreciate that. What I'd like to do, one of the deputies is receiving an award tomorrow at the Chamber's award breakfast. So if you don't mind, I'd like to read what the award is and what she's receiving. So,
Yes, sir.
on June 25th, 2024, Deputy Megan Smith was dispatched for a reckless operator driving the wrong way on Route 301 from Caroline County. As Deputy Smith patrolled the area in search of the reckless operator, the suspect vehicle struck another vehicle head-on and caught fire. The collision involved multiple victims, including a female with severe injuries in one vehicle and a male who was unresponsive and entrapped in the suspect vehicle. When Deputy Smith arrived on scene, she noticed that there was a fire visible under the suspect vehicle's chassis, and that there were multiple innocent bystanders in the immediate area offering to assist with the removal of the entrapped individuals. Deputy Smith immediately put her training and instincts to use and began evacuating subjects from the vehicles. After moving the victims to safety, Deputy Smith rapidly extinguished the fire under the vehicle's chassis and engaged with fellow first responders upon their arrival. Deputy Smith's ability to think under pressure and execute the necessary actions ensured the safety of the civilians and the first responders alike. Although the suspect vehicle operator sustained life-threatening injuries that evening without others sustaining severe to lesser injuries, there was no doubt that the combination of Deputy Smith's knowledge and bravery saved the lives of the parties involved and quite possibly numerous bystanders. That's what we run into. And just, we do appreciate y'all's support. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Congratulations, Deputy Smith. Ms. Puckett, do you have anything? Okay. Any other constitutional officers? Seeing none. Ms. Bender, Board of Directors.
Thank you very much, Mr. Collins. I will move on. I'm looking for a motion on the Board of Directors consent agenda.
I'll make a motion that we approve the consent agenda as presented and do a roll call approval of that.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion properly second. I will go by roll call. Mr. Robotham?
Aye.
Mr. Davis?
Aye.
Mr. Collins?
Aye.
Mr. Sullins?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion carries. All right, next up, we have a presentation from Bowden Environmental Service, Mr. Mark Bowden, and come up to the podium and talk about our water and wastewater operations.
Good evening, board. Good to see everyone this evening. All right, so we'll go with an overview of, this is June, do you have July's? I can, it was in that one email. I can go ahead and begin. For the water side of things, it's pretty business as usual. Our staff sent out notification letters to the residents for lead and copper sample collection as required by VDH. There was a chlorine pump feed pump that was replaced at the St. Paul entry point. There was a water meter that stopped working at the Oakland Park system, and King George County Maintenance will be repairing that. All right, for the wastewater side of things, there was a mechanical screen that had to be serviced at the Dahlgren facility. There was also a pillow block bearing for the rotors that was all repaired by King George County Maintenance. Our staff found some frayed and broken cable wires on SBR2 mixer, and those were promptly repaired by King George County Maintenance. We also, IS repaired some chemical feed lines for the carbon feed that we feed on a supplemental basis. And that is, we've seen some very positive effects from that. That allows us to feed on a consistent basis the carbon that is necessary for nutrient removal, specifically for nitrogen. The FOG program was initiated, and we have already seen extremely positive effects from implementing that process and that program. I do have a graph at the end of this slide that can dictate or give you some idea of how much that has helped. We've seen some real positive effects from that. The blower at the system for Perkins tripped as well due to some electrical issues. And so while the King George County Maintenance was in making those repairs, we utilized the downtime to go ahead and perform some preventative maintenance, changing out some oil, some belts, some air filters. We also performed some of the same PM services for the blowers at the Oakland Park facility. All systems met the permit requirements except for Perkins. But all other systems met permit compliance testing for the month of July. So here's the graph that I wanted to indicate. That red circle dot, that is when we commence the FOG, the fat, oil, and grease process here in the county. And as you can see, the organic loading that we were getting hit with at the wastewater plant was significant enough that the real effects from this were indeed very positive and positive quickly. And so our treatment plant was able to recover quickly, indicating that we can treat to this level if we are given influent of concentration values that the system can withstand. And so as you can see, we were upwards to 15 milligrams per liter. Did I do the zoom out function? Is that me? There it is. But as you can see, near the end of the month, we are at 1.3 milligrams per liter, and our limit here, I believe, is 3 milligrams per liter. So we are under limit for TKN at the end of the month. And so very positive effects were seen by that. And so that is all I have for my report. I'd be happy to field any questions from the board at this time.
Before I field question, I want to direct something, just so the public is aware. The fog didn't really start rolling, the improvement until probably beginning of August. Is that fair to say?
It was middle of July when we found some significant issues. After last month's meeting, we implemented some inspections the next day, where we found some facilities that had deteriorated grease trap and grease interceptor problems, and they were able to be resolved by the building owners and the facility managers. And so we have already seen some extremely positive effects from that.
Right, and why I want to bring that up, we would probably get another notice of violation in July on Perkins Corner because it is not overnight that the effects can be corrected, because it is a process. And most of the restaurant owners that we've contacted, they are very, once you explain it to them, they are very willing to comply because they understand what this does. Many of them didn't even understand what dumping that amount of fats, oils, and grease does to these wastewater plants and creates violations. Would that be a fair assessment to say?
Very fair. Correct.
And another, we do have our town hall, which you're going to be part of, that people can come and ask questions about the fog. But I know Mr. Collins does have questions.
Actually, my question is directed at Mr. Rosati. So you've been the fog chief since this is started out, and you could be in a fog many a time. So, as far as compliance and non-compliance, how's that?
Most of the individuals that I've spoke with have been very positive, and that a lot of them just really don't understand. And once you explain it to them, and actually a lot of these processes will likely save them some money. And we've provided the list that's been approved by the Hampton Roads Sanitation District of all the different interceptors and the companies that manufacture them. And I've tried to explain, some of these people wanted us to make specific recommendations, and I told them that's a qualified plumber you need to bring them there. They need to understand what your flow is and so forth, and get that piece of equipment that matches up with what your particular needs are. But most people have been very understanding, and they want to work with the county.
Thank you. So, Mr. Bowden, so your graph shows an immediate success in that program, which that photo that you showed us last meeting with the fog, oil, and grease, fog, fats, oils, and grease on top at the Perkins Corner. Is there a better picture now that there's not there?
What we are seeing now is not necessarily the grease, the liquid grease that we are getting, the fryer grease. We are still getting some remnants of grease coming in. It's just a lasting residual in the collection system. And that's not expressing itself as that film that you see on top, but more of a white or a brown leathery foam that's on top of the aeration basins. And so we're still working it through the plant and processing it. But with this removal, point source removal of fog, it significantly helped.
Madam Chair, so we have a fog inspector now,
Correct.
and there's been no raise in rates because of the fog inspector, correct?
Correct.
And there's 3 different grants that are currently being engineering done, plants control, and that's no cost to the
No, the 2 grants are not at a
no
cost.
cost to it, so the rates are not going to be affected by the positive changes. But there's no pay down on the debt if it's not.
No, there is not, and I will get to that in my report.
Thank you, Mr. Bowden. Nice to see you, John.
Does any of the other board members have any questions for Mr. Bowden? Thank you very much, Mr. Simmons, Jamie, for coming and helping. And I want to also, I always try to say shout out to our staff that have been helping so diligently. It's a long process, but we're getting there. So I'm going to try to highlight some of the stuff in my report. For first of all, I do want to introduce some of you might have seen our new utility billing specialist, because he was one of our interns who helped do the geocache project for the tourism, and had a lot of positive feedback. Jamel Carr has accepted the position of utility billing specialist in the finance department, and Jamel started with the county in November 2023 as an intern, and for the economic development department, and he holds a bachelor's degree in psychology and looks forward to being a service to the county. And he will be helping us bring the utility what muni billing does now back into the county, and we're looking at maybe an estimated $100,000 being saved as bringing it back into the county. And a lot of residents will be happy because they'll be able to speak to somebody in person and not that voice from beyond in North Carolina. So that is one positive. Go ahead, Mr.
Madam Chair, I just want to say that when I first came on, he worked with another department, and he's like, I'm from King George. I don't want to go anywhere else. This is where I want to work. And I just promised him, I was like, I'm going to do all I can to keep you here. So I'm just glad to hear that he stayed. I know he wanted to be here, and that's the kind of people we want. So thank you.
Yes, I have to our finance staff, they grabbed him right away, and I think it'll be great. And he has a good attitude about work, and he's excited about the job. So I also had meetings. We have been having meetings biweekly with Emboden, the Service Authority staff, and our senior advisor, Norma Savi, and the county administrator and myself, so we could all stay on the same page and make sure we're progressing forward. We have been improving the processes, especially on the financial side with our finance staff. We're staying on top of financials, keeping track of the ARPA funds, which can be challenging. We just had a meeting today to make sure that things were out to bid and the process, because remember, we have to get everything bid and awarded by the end of the year. You don't have to finish the projects until 2026, but you have to have all that steps done by the end of this calendar year to make sure we can keep the $16 million from DEQ and the $5 million from VDH. One exciting thing is the first reimbursement from DEQ is being finalized. And let me make sure I get this number right. $853,347.96 will be coming back to the Service Authority. And that is from, because we have to expend the funds ourselves and then we get reimbursed back. So that should be coming soon back to the Service Authority. We're keeping an open line of communication between all departments. That was a big problem in the past. And we're trying to keep everybody on board and everybody informed. And one thing I've been discussing with Ms. Southall, and we're got to have time to be able to do that, is creating some short videos to explain what the Service Authority is, take you a tour around some of the plants, and see what we've done for the last 8 months. So stay tuned on that. We have cataloged disposable vehicles, equipment, and steel at the Service Authority. And Mr. Collins will be happy to know the process has been started to dispose of the stuff that we cannot outright sell, like the steel in one vehicle that's in pretty bad shape. And the other vehicles, I think soon will be coming up for auction that people can come online and bid for them. And anybody would love an old pump truck or a classic Ford truck, you stay tuned. You might see them online. You can purchase them. We are making sure things are getting done in the training and the follow through. That's another big thing that hadn't been needed some better and refinement. We're working on that. The staff and Mr. Rasavi are still working on the list of equipment and needs of the Service Authority. A list is being redone with proper dollar amounts and a plan of action to tackle it. And once that list is finished, we can compare with financials and look at the billing. And that's where I was coming to the debt and the finance part. We're still trying to work with that, because one of the biggest things is we want to make sure we don't add debt to pay for the things we need to fix to make sure we're still in compliance. So that's what we're trying to get a handle of first. We've mentioned, and I'm going to bring this up because it's in the information item, the town hall for the fog ordinance is scheduled for August 27th, 2024 from 4 to 6 p.m. in the boardroom. So if you have any questions on the fog program, especially for the restaurants, please come. It's going to be an open forum. You just come and ask questions. Unfortunately, I think we could have, and I'll take this one, worked a little better on our announcing for the town hall we did on easements. Mr. Young and I, our county engineer, did a brief little video that is up on our YouTube channel that you can watch. But we did have Mr. Rasavi, and Mr. Young and I spoke with a citizen that was very confused about the letter she got today asking for easements. So I just want to put out there, the letters that have been sent out are just for your reference, and you can come to the county to talk about them, or we do have a company that we've contracted called ARM, that will be approaching the residents for the Circle and Canterbury Interconnect for the easement. So please, that's informational, the information that's been sent out. And I encourage you even to come on August 27th if you have more questions, or like this homeowner and resident did, call us directly and we can sit down and talk with you. And one other thing I would like to mention is we are having a meeting with DEQ, and these are with the people that you need to speak to at DEQ, so that we finally can be 100% on the same page, show them the improvements we've been making to the service authority, and come up with a path that we can all agree on so that they understand that we are doing our best. And I know in the past, there's been a lot of promises made, but this time I think we're finally have proof to show that we really are on a roadmap to success. And so we will be meeting with DEQ on August 28th, and I'll have a report about that in our next board meeting. Mr. Rasavi, do you have any comments to make? And I caught you right as you were talking.
No, I think you've covered most of the things. I'm working closely with John and the folks from Emboden. There is some equipment and so forth that we've got to get them to, it'd be the equivalent of, Mr. Stroud's sending a group of Marines out with a single shot 22. So we got to get them the right equipment to finish the job that's this accumulation in the pump stations and the pipes. And so we're working on that right now. And hopefully I've spoke with Levita that they'll be closing out the previous fiscal year so we can get a handle on exactly what our finances are and then how we can deal with those things. But we're inching closer to turning things around. It's just, it's been a number of years since these problems have developed. And so it's not something you can just wave the magic wand and turn around overnight, but I think we're headed in the right direction.
Do anybody have any question for Mr. Rasavi or myself? Go ahead, Mr. Collins.
You say you can't wave a magic wand, but here's what you have. As things are better than they've been in 20 years, I'm familiar with it. Thank you, Mr. Rasavi.
All right. Next, we have no public presentations, and we have our secondary public comment for the Service Authority. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes per person in order to afford everyone an opportunity to speak. Please provide your full name and district when submitting your public comment so that it can be properly recorded and included in the public record. Is there anybody in the audience who would like to come up and speak on the Service Authority only? Is there anybody online, Mr. Dines?
No, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Did anybody receive any correspondence while they were sitting up here? No. With that, I will be closing public comment, and I'll look for a motion for adjournment.
A motion that we adjourn to September 3rd, 2024 at 5:30 p.m. in the boardroom of the Rivercombe Building.
Thank you. Do you have a second?
Second.
I have a motion properly seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Chair votes aye. Motion carries. We are adjourned for the Service Authority. Mr. Collins.
Thank you. Public hearing 8-6, King George County Board of Supervisors will hold a public hearing that has been properly advertised to receive public comment in regards to the FY 25-29 King George County Capital Improvement Plan. Public comment is limited to 3 minutes per person per speaker in order to afford everyone an opportunity to speak. Please state your name and address before comment. Upon completion of public comment, I'll bring the matter back to the board for consideration. Is there any public comment in regards to the capital improvement plan? Ms. Lavelle?
Hi. My name is Ana Maria Lobo. I live in Presidential Lakes. A big thanks to the Sheriff's Department and Fire and Rescue Squad and Parks and Recreation. My kids grow up with these three services and are the greatest we have in King George. Well, also I want to remind you that some of the supervisors lost the election last year because they wanted to bring more business and more people to the county. More business and more people means more traffic, more public service such as law enforcement and fire and rescue. The people of King George will be happy if you pay the debt. It was the same thing 30 years ago when the landfill was opening. It was going to bring a great revenue to the county. By the way, what you are doing with all that money, I also want to say the people at the landfill are doing a good job keeping everything clean. And also, I want to tell you, Mr. Davis, I'm glad that you talked with the base, because the base was a big asset to the county. My kids grew up at the base in the swim team, feeding the ducks, and many things. 4th of July was a big event for the King George people, and I wish they're still working, because the base used to be a big help to the county. They always work with the YMCA, Parks and Recreation. I work with those people, and I hope they help you, because in September 11, they closed the base for people, and I hope you bringing these people back. Thank you.
All righty. Is there anybody else for public comment? Is there any comments online?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Has anybody received any comments? Smollett?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So for the CIP budget for the FY 25-26 year, there was a total request to the county of $7,051,500. The Planning Commission went through, vetted the projects, as did the Board of Supervisors at their last meeting. So the board requested that for this public hearing, I present my recommendations for funding. So before you tonight, there's the spreadsheet that's also up on the screen for the public. Under the column total FY25 appropriation. Based on what we have available, I'm recommending a total budget. I'll go through this individually. $2,872,178. That's broken up into several different categories. The first agency are public schools. I'm recommending $537,178 for school bus replacement, $130,000 for King George Elementary to replace the gym floor, $125,000 to replace the ramp and deck for the modular classrooms. Moving down to fire rescue, I'm recommending $350,000 for ambulance replacement. For solid waste and recycling, I'm recommending $125,000 for the Sealston Convenience Center compactor replacement. For general properties, I'm recommending $750,000 to finish out the new general properties building. For the engineering department, recommending $600,000. $600,000 for the demolition of the old King George Middle School. And there are the IT down near the bottom, information technologies. All three of those are also in my recommendation. They are not highlighted in pink, but computer replacement, $90,000. The county Cisco network upgrade, $50,000. And the boardroom AV upgrades, $115,000. Again, my total recommendations for the FY25 CIP are $2,872,178. So the CIP, it's directly tied and state coded. It's directly tied to the comprehensive plan. As we work on next year's budget, I hope that this list will be 2 to 3 times as long. And one thing I'm going to have is to have the departments making the request directly tie it to the goals, actions, and strategies within the comprehensive plan. This list, it's important to have a comprehensive list, a CIP list. So as we work with developers who are willing to voluntarily proffer certain things for their developments, they can clearly see the needs of the county. So at this point in time, I'm recommending that the board approve the CIP, $2,872,178. However, I do recommend that the Board of Supervisors hold off on the allocation. And the reason for that is Ms. Cobb and I have been working with Davenport and our bond council, looking for the funding mechanisms for this. There's the capital fund that we have, but also some of the questions that we raised. The courthouse is coming to, the construction is coming to an end here in the next couple of months. there are remaining funds for that project. So our questions to our bond counsel was, can we utilize, just transfer those funds over into another CIP project? Additionally, can we use the interest from the 2017 VRSA school bonds? There has been interest earned on these bonds, and we want to make sure there is and I forgive me for forgetting the term, but if you get over a certain amount of interest, you're going to have to pay the federal government back based on those incomes earned. So we want to be 100% clear that we can utilize the excess funds from the courts and the interest from 2017 VRSA financing before the board allocates any money. So with this public hearing, I recommend for FY25, $2,872,178 for capital improvement projects in King George County.
All right. Any questions, Mr. Smolnik, from the board in regards to his recommendations? Mr. Collins?
So,
Mr. Sullins recognized you, sir.
Okay. Sir, can you talk a little bit about the general properties building? Can you, when you say build that out or finish it out, what does that entail?
So this was a project that I inherited. So right now the general properties, we are leasing a building. I talked to that landlord. It was last Thursday. That lease is coming due March of 2025. So instead of leasing, the county, this was prior to my time, looked ahead and made a purchase of a metal building that will be placed on, I believe it is a government way at the top of the cul-de-sac past the animal shelter. So the building has been ordered. It's here any day. I signed a purchase order for the engineered site plan. We will get that through and get that building up hopefully before our lease runs out, which is the end of March. I think it's March 31st, 2025 for the current facility.
All right, Mr. Stroud?
Yes, sir. So just for any contractors that happen to be listening in, I just like to say the approved budget isn't what we're expecting to spend. So it's just an approved budget. Any bid should come in a lot less. So in most cases. But I also concur with the recommendation, sir. And the amounts that just for the building that we were just speaking about, I like to call out that originally that was 1.5 million, but the original estimate that came in was over $3 million that was approved previously. So thank you for the hard work you guys are doing.
Thank you. Is there any other questions or comments?
Yes. Thank you very much. I have two questions. One of them is for Dr. Boyd. Can clarify. They're replacing the ramp and deck. Which school is that at?
Dr. Boyd, come forth and be recognized, please.
Sir, thank you, Mr. Chair. That is at King George Elementary School. Those are the modular units out front of King George Middle School on the Route 3 side, and that is to bring those up to safety requirements.
I was asking that because I've seen the ones at Potomac, not the new ones, the older ones, and I was going to raise questions because those are not in the best shape, and I'd hate to spend all this money on ramps for those, but I understand the King George Elementary, so I just wanted to clarify. And Dr. Boyd, please stay up because I have another question. I told Mr. Smolnik I would bring this up. Is I understand the need for at least one of the fields at the middle school to be put into working order for the middle school, especially the two soccer teams. I know Mr. Collins, you have some heartache about the one inside the track, but at least I call it the old field hockey field, is the kids don't have anywhere to safely practice. I mean, I know the girls soccer team uses the marching band field in the spring, and I don't know where the boys go, probably in the baseball field, but I would wonder if we could consider at least doing that part so the kids at the middle school have a place to practice safely.
What's that cost?
Which is that one on here, Mr. Smolnik? I should have had it off the top of my head.
That's KGMS Athletic Fields. It's up at...
Oh, at the top. Is that just for one or is that for both?
Scroll over, I think.
Well, there's two, so I just want to... I'm just looking for one of them because those kids should have a place to safely be able...
That's both. I believe it's half of that roughly. And we're talking, just so that I'm on the same page with you, you're referring to the field where the staging was done
Yes.
for the renovation of the middle school.
For us that remembers the high school, that was where the field hockey team played and.
Runs parallel to 205.
Yeah.
Correct. Yes.
What's the cost?
I believe it's roughly half of that amount right there. That amount there includes the middle
What's the
school
amount?
field as well. It's about $35.
But it's not for another, from 2026, instead of 5 now. So we'll talk about moving it over.
Yes. Just want the kids to have a place to practice that is safe for them.
Does anybody have interest in moving that forward?
Yes.
1, 2, is there 3? There's 3.
We're talking roughly 39,000.
I believe so. Correct.
Yeah, definitely.
For 40, just to. So if it's half that, I'd say put $40,000 in the budget to my 2872178. I'm working the numbers real quick.
Okay. Anybody have any other questions?
Let me just see. I'm just going up through.
Question, sir.
No, I do not. Thank you, Dr. Boyd.
Thank you. Mr. Davis?
Thank you. I've been down there, and you probably have too, so I don't know. But when I see things like, sidewalks need repair, have you seen the sidewalks at Potomac Elementary School?
Yes, sir.
And what's your opinion of those right now?
They're in disrepair, and the asphalt there is also in bad need of disrepair. Usually, we're putting for years since I've been here, we're putting Band-Aids on those. We're filling that pothole that's coming directly into the right-hand side. Those sidewalks are cracked around that facility. That entire school is, I've been told, is in a swamp. So a lot of that ground is moving, and oftentimes we're experiencing issues with cracked pavement and asphalt and such.
The reason why I bring up that, I was just recently we had an issue at social services where that someone messed their foot up really bad or something like that, and I think we had to end up paying for some of that or something. I don't know exactly what happened, but we had to go out and fix it and paint. I've seen them. I'm not expert in sidewalks, but they didn't seem to be the best shape as far as, are they a hazard is my question. And I'm asking this because I don't hear people talking about Potomac Elementary School a lot. I hear at King George Elementary, I hear all these things, but it's like Potomac is like the stepchild school or something, and it's like we don't really, it's neglected. So I want to see how imperative it is before we just pass over it again.
I agree with your
How much?
statement.
Sorry, Dr. Boyd.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Do you know how much the sidewalk repair for that school?
I believe that's 110,000, sir.
Mr. Davis?
Yes, sir. If it's something that it needs to be done, and you have wheelchairs, you have people walk, whatever it is. If it just seems to be an issue, and the parking lot, you're right, is a wreck, and we patch the hole every day, and that's what it seems like. But if it needs to be done, I'm just trying to avoid things down the line, and I like to see us pour a little bit into the Dahlgren school that's been here the longest.
So, is there a consensus of the board to move that up to 110,000?
Mr. Collins, I would agree. My daughter went to Potomac, and it needs to make sure we have put in a lot of money in the other schools. We need to take care of all the facilities.
So that you want to move that up, you say?
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Davis?
Yes, sir.
Sully, do you want to move up? Yes. That's 3.
Yes, sir.
4, another 110,000. Already? All right, you better sit down.
Stay as long as you need me to.
Alrighty. No more comments. I'll bring the matter back to the board. Board can, under Mr. Smolnick's request, is to motion.
So in addition to just for clarification, we're adding $40,000 to the King George Middle School athletic fields, $110,000 to the Potomac Elementary replacement sidewalk, for a new recommended total of $3,022,178.
Is there a motion?
I make a motion that we appropriate $3,022,178 for the capital improvement program as presented by Mr. Smolnick.
President and amended.
As a print, let me try that again. I make a motion that we appropriate $3,022,178 for the capital improvement program as presented and amended by Mr. Smolnick.
Second.
Properly seconded. Is there any discussion on the matter? All those in favor by roll call? Mr. Davis?
Aye.
Mr. Sullins?
Aye.
Mr. Stroud?
Aye.
Ms. Bender?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Already. There's the marching papers there. Already, the next public hearing will be King George County Board of Supervisors now hold a public hearing that has been properly advertised to receive public input regarding the fog ordinance. Please, public comments is limited to 3 minutes per person in order to afford everyone an opportunity to speak. Please state your name and address before your comment. Upon completion of the public comment, I'll bring the matter back to the board for consideration. Is there any public comment in regards to the fats, oils, and grease ordinance? Anything online?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Anybody received anything? Okay. Mr. Smolik, you have a
Just very briefly, so again, this was enacted there's a provision in state code for a 60-day emergency ordinance that was enacted by the Board of Supervisors January 16th, 2024. Following that, I took this item to the Planning Commission where there was a duly advertised public hearing on Tuesday, August 13th. There was a discussion at the Planning Commission about the ordinance itself and really who this applies to. Some of the discussions were how do we know who it applies to? Is this for private? The big thing is this deals with entities who dump or have the potential to dump fats, oils, and greases into the public system. And as I stated to the Planning Commission, no ordinance, I've never seen an ordinance yet come out of the gate 100% perfect. That's why there is a provision in state code to come back and amend an ordinance at any time. So, if the Board of Supervisors wants to adopt this tonight and there are needed changes in the future, that ability is provided by state code. The Planning Commission, after the public hearing and the discussion, they voted, I believe it was 8-0 to 1 with a favorable recommendation onto the Board of Supervisors, which is before you tonight. The language has not changed since your initial emergency enactment on July 16, 2024. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Was there any comments from the Planning Commission?
Other than some of the language, who does this apply to? I know it recommends or it highlights commissaries, bakers. So it is a broad brush. So I indicated to the Planning Commission that I would bring those concerns to the Board of Supervisors. If there is clarifying language, looking at the language, it states clearly in this, rereading this introduction and accumulation of fats, oils, and grease into the King George Service Authority sanitary sewer system. That indicates that's the public system. This does not apply to private drain fields, businesses or other entities on private drain fields. And I had this discussion with Mr. Valentine at the Health Department. He had gotten some questions from some businesses who are on drain fields. I said, no, sir, this does not apply, just the public system.
So does it apply to residential?
So the target is, the question is, does this apply to residential? I'm going to look down to the fog king here. So that
Working.
Actually, this does not apply to and the requirements of anybody in a residence and so forth. But there are do's and don'ts, which I believe Amy has posted on our website. Just common sense things that you would do at home when you make bacon and so forth. You don't dump it down whether you have a septic system or a public sewer system. And we've published those items and so forth. And I believe, Matt, you indicated to me when I put the question out, do we accept grease at the convenience site? I believe you told me there was a site there that if you want to add your grease up and take it there, like I guess like oil out of your vehicle and so forth, that's acceptable too. But it's if you put it down your home, whether you're on a public system or private system, you're going to end up with problems. So it's just wise to handle it in a proper manner.
So the planning, a few members did reach out from the Planning Commission and the broad stroke, as you mentioned. So A lot of folks were wondering if it applies. Car washes, schools, medical facilities, those type of things.
One thing, all of this is developed by the Clean Water Act, and the legislature, through their enforcement of that, through implementation of the various statutes, car washes basically pre-treat their water. If they're, most of it's recycled, but what they do inject, they have to pre-treat it. And actually, the regulations, which I've amended some of those that I'm giving Mr. Stewart to review legally, requires if a business comes in, an industry or something, the service authority in the application, they should be providing us documentation of their effluent levels. And we would have them analyzed by the engineering firm to determine if pre-treatment would be required. That is what is supposed to be done. And when I've talked to, I guess most of the employees have left, there's not that many, because you don't have that much industry or so forth. Like someone, like in Westmoreland, carry-on trailer that does a lot of painting and so forth, we required them to provide us with documentation regarding whether or not it had to be pre-treated. So those, for example, you wouldn't want an auto body shop dispensing all the chemicals and so forth, because all this is enumerated in the Clean Water Act. So it's not just fats, oils, and grease. That's probably makes up about 50%. It's probably greater here in King George because you don't have a lot of industries and so forth. So that needs to be put in place. And I've given Mr. Stewart those comments to review, and then that will be brought back to the service authority to adopt those and update them, because some of the things have been overlooked. Some of the language was confusing, and some of the capital cost was not being applied properly for the past several years since it has been adopted. So all that will be corrected once he goes through it, and then we'll bring it back and I'll go over those with him.
Does anybody else have any questions for the Fall King? Anybody have any questions for Mr. Smolnick in this regards?
I don't have any questions, just a couple comments.
Go ahead, Ms. Bender.
So I said I would, so I'm going to clarify, because I had a couple of planning commission members reach out to me. So just for the public's clarification, it does not apply to anybody who is not on the service authority. A lot of folks thought it applied to everybody in the county. It only applies to those businesses that are on the service authority. So I just wanted to clarify that. And then there was a lot of questions about acronyms and the information contained in it. Mr. Rasavi has reached out quite a bit to Hampton Roads, and they created the bottle ordinance. That was, if I'm correct, Mr. Rasavi, there was a committee that helped create it. And Hampton Roads, for those of you who don't know, is considered the gold standard in the state of Virginia for how their service authority is. And so that's who we reached out to, and they've been very helpful. They're very helpful, especially to localities that need some assistance. And so that's who we got it from, and that's the standard that the state accepts as the gold standard. So that's where we got the acronyms from and the information, correct, Mr. Rasavi? So if you could just explain a little bit more.
That's correct. And like where they use the food service staff, all that language is in the Clean Water Act. So when it's passed on to the states through the legislature, through DEQ and so forth, they just conform using the same acronyms and language. So rather than modify it and change it and become confusing, we just kind of standardize it.
So these things were supposed to be already enacted and it's supposed to have been going on in King George. It never was.
That's correct.
Correct statement. So, all right, I'll bring it forth to the members of the board. What's your pleasure?
I make a motion that the King George County Board of Supervisors approve the addition to the Chapter 15 of the King George County Code entitled Water, Sewage Disposal by adding Article 5 entitled Fat, Oils, and Grease.
Second.
Properly second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Roll call. Mr. Davis?
Aye.
Mr. Stroud?
Aye.
Owens? Aye. Spender?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. All righty. Yes, so we're going to take a 5-minute break. We'll see you in 5 minutes. Alrighty, we are now back in session, and it is 7:33. Next on the agenda is 8:08, TAC application 2025 Independence Day fireworks with South Hall. Director of Community Engagement.
Good evening, members of the board. As we discussed last meeting, the request and recommendation from the Tourism Advisory Committee as well as staff is to approve to continue for next year the Independence Day celebration, which we're specifically asking to be able to put down a deposit so that we can secure the date for next year in 2025, which would be July 12th. And so that's our recommendation and request of the board today.
What's the amount?
The total is 25,000, which is what it's been for the last couple of years. I believe that we're continuing on the same contract, and we put in the recommended motion that that would still be subject to review by the interim county attorney as well, just to make sure it's all still the same language. But the total is 25,000 for the fireworks show, and this is just to make sure that we can get a $12,500 deposit by September 1st to secure the date for next year of July 12th.
Okay.
I'm willing to make a motion because I want to clarify to the public too, is this fireworks company is not many in the United States that do this, and you have to lock them in a year ahead of time. So I'll make a motion to approve the allocation of $25,000 from 41481700360 professional services other to renew the contract subject to review by the county attorney with American Fireworks Company and secure the 2025 King George Independence Celebration fireworks display on July 12th, 2025 with a deposit of $12,500 by September 1st.
There's a second?
Second.
Properly second by roll call. Mr. Davis?
Aye.
Mr. Stroud?
Aye.
Sullins?
Aye.
Ms. Bender?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Thank you.
Thank you.
0809, Community Policy and Management Team, CPMT, request for supplemental funds for the FY24 Children's Service Act, CSA. Mr. Jonathan Franklin, Director of the Department of Social Services.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair. And as just to briefly summarize from last meeting, this is to end our 2024 fiscal year in the amount of $69,792. And if it makes you feel any better, the CSA budget is one of 4 under the Department of Social Services, and we had ample remaining funds in our 3 other budgets that help cover this as well.
So what's the amount, sir?
$69,792.
Question from Mr. Sullins. Go ahead, sir.
Hey, thanks for coming out. I remember from one of our previous meetings that I actually got to attend. Sorry about that. One of these days, the day job won't get in the way. But I thought that Delta was closer to 87,000, and I thought that you guys were anticipating that this would be covered by the state.
So it's less because we were able to unencumber some invoices or some purchase orders, and then a portion of it is covered. So these are pooled funds. And in the request there, so our local match rate is 36%. It fluctuates from year to year. And so the estimated local actuals are $25,515.
All righty.
And I will say, yeah,
Mr. Davis, go ahead.
That he's correct that there are, being a member of that board, there are other areas where they have a lot of money left over that they've been very frugal with their money and not spent it, so that money would just be made up at some time anyway, I would believe, right?
Correct. So, Mr. Franklin, is this a transfer or is this a additional request?
Well, because in years past we did not have the ability to do transfers. I didn't think about that until actually this afternoon. So I'm not sure. I don't have Miss Cobb here. I have somebody else from the finance department.
Can you come up and speak to that? Can you come up to the mic, please?
I can say a little bit about that. I don't know if the transfer is something that they can do, being that they are state funded, and then you all do your own invoices and you send them to us for us to cut the checks only. So I don't know, but I know Levita would be able to see how that's done. Do you remember how it was done previously? Have you ever gotten any funds from the county before for this project?
I mean, we have had to request additional supplemental funds.
And it was done through a budget transfer to your line item?
That I do not.
I'm thinking it'll probably be a budget transfer, but don't hold me to that. We can clarify that when Ms. Cobb comes in tomorrow.
So, Mr. Franklin, is this is a second reading, doesn't have to be action. Is it okay if you determine how that should work?
So we have to be able to issue checks by the end of August in order to meet the end of the fiscal year timeline.
Mr. Stewart?
So it would either be a budget transfer also.
Mr. Chairman, I think you can make it your approval contingent upon the proper process, but typically you're just transferring from one line item to another. And I think that's what they're asking to do.
A budget transfer can be done.
But I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, you're just asking to transfer it from one line item to another. Is that correct?
Well,
in previous years, we weren't able to ask. We were actually asking for additional funds, but
Mr. Chairman, if I may again, you have surplus funds left over in one category. What category is that?
all three, so admin, assistance, and purchase of service.
Do you know roughly what that amount is?
I would suggest you could approve it subject to the
I've got
approval of
90,000.
Mrs. Cobb.
90,000 in each one of all three accounts.
So what would be the proper motion?
I think I would suggest you, if you're inclined to approve it subject to the process being approved by Mrs. Cobb, since she's the finance director. And she would know the proper process.
The priority being to transfer the funds among the accounts first, and then where it can't be done, then it would come from the
correct
general fund. So the priority is transfer among the accounts if they can do that, and if not, then they have the approval to transfer from the general fund where they can't.
And the specific amount is $69,792. So it would be to approve that transfer from the three line items that Mr. Franklin requested, subject to the approval of the process by Mrs. Cobb, is what I would suggest we do.
So what are the three line items?
Admin.
Public assistance and purchase of service.
Okay, is there a motion?
Motion as stated, that it's approved as stated by the county attorney.
Second.
Clarify the motion.
Mr. Chairman, I would suggest the motion be that the board could move to approve the transfer of $69,792 from one or all of the surplus accounts as identified by Mr. Franklin to the CSA line item, subject to approval of the process by Mrs. Cobb, the finance director.
So moved.
Second. Probably second by roll call. Mr. Davis?
Aye.
Mr. Stroud?
Aye.
Owens?
Aye.
Ms. Bender?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Thank you, sir.
I do want to just say one more thing just on that. So if there's an issue with that transfer from Virginia state law or something like that, should we not say something that if that can't happen, then that can come from the general fund? Because they have to cut checks by the end of the month. So I don't want there to be any delay in that if that comes up.
Well, you can make a minor motion to.
I think you gave
Mrs.
Cobb
Ms.
that.
Cobb has the approval to do
That
that.
was why I was qualified by
great,
giving
Doug,
Mrs.
thank you.
Cobb, because she will know which line items it can come out of. You gave her the flexibility to do it, or if it can't, and if it can't be done, then I suspect they're going to be back to the board.
Okay. Alrighty. Next one is 10 810, a resolution of the Board of Supervisors of King George, Virginia, opposing the creation of Regional Transportation Authority in the Pampo GWRC region. Mr. Stewart?
Mr. Chairman, in your board packet is a resolution that I was requested to draft, which in essence would oppose the creation of a regional transportation authority, which would subject King George County to several new taxes, and the majority of which would go to the Fredericksburg region for transportation approvals. And so what this resolution says is, county opposes that, and or if it's adopted by the General Assembly, they would at least like, counties would at least like the ability to opt out of something like that so it wouldn't be imposed upon them. As you all are aware, there's been a discussion by Delegate Cole that represents the city of Fredericksburg, and maybe one other, Senator McPike, who represents a small portion of Stafford, of doing this. It's something that has come back and forth before the General Assembly, and many believe it's going to come back this year. Caroline adopted a very similar ordinance to this, and I don't know if any of the others are, but this expresses your desire to not be bound by something like that, and could be used in the General Assembly, hopefully to modify or impact that legislation if they try to force it on the county people in the GWRC region.
Ms. Bender, you have a comment or question?
Yes, thank you. Being on GWRC and being here for the whole discussion on the GWRC board, I sat in at home on the FAMPO board meeting last night where Caroline's resolution was presented to the board. Spotsylvania also has presented a resolution concerning this matter that they do not want to be, I'm going to say it, forced into a regional transportation authority, because that's what it would be. But I've heard scuttlebutt that, as you know, Mr. Stewart, that Delegate Cole and Senator McPike probably will bring it back up next session. So this is important. So I will make a resolution if everybody doesn't have any more questions. So I'm going to make a motion for a resolution of the Board of Supervisors of King George County opposing the creation of a regional transportation authority in the FAMPO GWRC region.
Mr. Chairman, Ms. Bender, was that, I'm sorry, you said you made a motion to resolution. You meant a motion to adopt the resolution?
Yes, sorry. Thank you for clarifying my language on that.
Second. Second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Alrighty. 811, Mr. Rappahannock intake, Mr. Stewart.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, as you're aware, the board has had some discussions about the intake on the Rappahannock River that's owned, and I don't know if it's owned by Birchwood Partners or Amazon Data Services at this point, Web Services at this point. But given the fact that DEQ has given King George County a deadline to get off of the aquifer and to find another source of water to serve the citizens of King George County, there have been discussions amongst members of the board to pursue trying to acquire that intake. I've done a little bit of research into this, and if you all would like for me to proceed down that path, I think this is the first resolution you would need to adopt, and it would instruct me to proceed to try to acquire that intake on the river owned by that entity, either AWS or Birchwood, and to engage any other personnel that I need to assist me in that for that purpose.
Questions, comments?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I just wanted to clarify because I was here several years ago and I couldn't even, it was 3 or 4 years ago when we did make an offer to Birchwood to purchase the intake and they turned us down. So I just wanted to clarify, we have done this before, had made an offer to acquire this intake knowing that we will have to go to surface water, and just understanding we are on a clock, especially for the hop yard permit and possibly on a second permit that we have to go to surface water in 14 years.
Mr. Stewart, this is a process.
Yes, sir. Process would begin by appraising it and seeing if we can talk to them and if they'd be willing to sell it.
Are there any motions?
I'll make the motion. I move to instruct the interim county attorney to take the necessary steps and engage necessary individuals to acquire the intake owned by Birchwood and/or Amazon Data Services Incorporated on the Rappahannock.
Second.
Properly second. Is there any discussion? Being none, by roll call, Mr. Davis.
Aye.
Mr. Stroud.
Aye.
Sullins. Aye. Ms. Bender.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. 812, King George County Schools reappropriation of King George County School funds in the amount of $1,091,866. Dr. Jesse Boyd.
Yes, good evening again, Mr. Chair, members of the board. I am coming before you this evening for our annual reappropriation request of King George County Schools funds. I do want to say, this thing straight. I do want to say that some good news. We did find out today that all of our King George County schools are fully accredited this year. That news came out of the Virginia Department of Education today. So I just wanted to mention that to the board for the first time. You're the first to hear it. So that's good news. I also wanted to just take a quick second to remind our community that Friday evening from 4 to 7 and Saturday during the day 1 to 3, we will be offering tours of the former middle school and former preschool. If anyone would like to attend those and check out those facilities, we've certainly created a path that is safest, we believe, to allow our citizens to make to tour those facilities and make an informed decision when we work our way into the referendum. So this evening, or excuse me, last evening, King George County School Boards did make a request, our annual request to reappropriate funds. You should have in your packet our transfer request forms. I know Ms. Williams at the King George County School Board office and Ms. Cobb here in the county office have been working on this. King George County Schools desire to reappropriate $1,091,866 from the following categories: instruction, from instruction to the following categories: social worker, homebound, media services, office of principal, executive admin, information services, fiscal services, health services, psychological services, operation maintenance, debt services, and technology. The request is being made to cover the bills in excess of the anticipated amounts that have been received to reconcile the budget for Fund 250 for the King George County School General Operating Budget. Transfers are completed to ensure that no expenditure category is overspent prior to the final annual audit and compilation of the annual comprehensive financial report. So again, this is our annual process of rectifying the funds within 250 to make sure they all balance before we send this information along with the county's information onto the annual audit.
Questions?
I had just, yes, thank you. I was going to let somebody else go first. If not, thank you, Mr. Stroud. I have a couple of questions down on the first page of the budget transfer. So are these extra salaries, or that's a lot of money there in salaries?
So what this is what we tend to do is budget a certain amount of money for salaries. I believe Mr. Collins is familiar with this. This is typically in this county and termed as like breakage. It's salaries that are budgeted at a certain step, but we hire somebody at a lesser step after the budget has been approved. So typically we have leftover funds in the instructional category for that reason.
So we have to add to it? That's where I'm just...
No, all of these funds currently exist in Fund 250. This is not new money or money requested from the Board of Supervisors. This is just balancing the line items within Fund 250.
So this is the old Senate would move the money around to make sure the balance is what I'm asking about.
This is what we do annually, right before the audit. And what we do, you'll see that some of those costs that are below, those are the ones that pop up through the year. They'll pop up in every budget year. They'll pop up in the county budget. They'll pop up in the school budget. And if anyone has any questions on what some of those are, I won't go through them line by line, but if you have a question about a specific one, I can address it.
And why I ask you because to a lay person, they look at this and go, oh my God, then they want another $1 million for all these things and what it means. So I just wanted you to clarify exactly what this is so that the public understands. Because if I was a layperson, I'd say, think the same thing. So thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Sullins?
So a few months ago, we talked as we were preparing the budget for the coming year. There was a delta of about 1.8 million. We figured out, all but about $1 million of that. And you were going to come back in August and discuss with us. Just to clarify, this is not that $1 million.
No, sir, this is not that $1 million. This is money that's in our current
it's
250.
Yep, got it.
And we'll and typically, as far as the timing is concerned, we'll come back after that audit is complete. That's when the year-end funds will be relatively clear at that point.
Okay.
And to discuss the matter you're referring to.
Just a reminder, one of the things that I asked for before we do that is a detailed description of what are we paying for with that $1 million?
Yes, sir. I'm aware, and I'll be happy to bring that back at that time.
Cool. So are these positions with this million and some dollars additional positions?
There's only one that was an additional position. That was our financial position that we acquired from the Board of Supervisors. Not the most recent position, the accounts payable position that was in this last budget cycle, but the payroll position that we adopted initially. That's the only one that was really a half position. Everything else is not a new position.
Well,
Right, so thank you, sir. And I don't even see that position on this form, other than it's fiscal services.
Yes,
maybe,
sir.
But, so, a couple concerns. I would, at your leisure, whenever you have time, sometime, maybe, get together, and I'd be curious in breaking down the $644,000 for operation and maintenance, because I understand throughout the year things happen, and that's what it's there for. You need to do that. But seems to be a large amount to have to move, and may indicate. My question is why? Why did we not budget enough there in the first place, or did something catastrophic happen? And that does happen sometimes. I know this recent rain destroyed a lot of stuff. So, but I'd be interested in breaking that down. And not against the transfer, because I support that, what you're doing, balancing your budget, that's just good business. But just in why the amount, and what that $204,000 in the health services was.
Where are you referring to?
That's right there on that page, right there.
I see where you are.
Yeah.
So that's an increase in needed substitutes. Our nurses have needed additional support, additional substitutes. That's the first thing. Healthcare expense, what that typically is, and where you see that listed on I believe the cover page that you guys, I believe it's on the cover page that you guys have. So that's our staff members that when we originally budget and we just roll up the budget, they formerly did not choose the healthcare option, but in this budget year, they did choose the healthcare option. It just happens to fall in that line item because it's in our health services department. General supplies and grant expenses that have been, that $97,000 there has been reimbursed, but it has not been balanced within the fund category.
So a part of that money is being used to pay for employee health care.
Yes, sir.
But it's not covered in payroll.
It's what we do when we budget from year to year is roll up the existing amount that employee costs the school division. If after that requested budget amount, after we approve the budget, that employee decides that they would like to choose healthcare, then that's an additional cost on the school division, in which we have the money in salaries, but we just have to balance that line item because it is a new expense on that particular line item. If that makes sense.
Well, so, and here now I'm kind of getting to my question. So, you guys say that you need, teachers are underpaid, you need more money. And I understand the step and the salaries. I get that, and do that in business all the time. But so you come in and you present a budget to us based on, here's a number of positions, here's the salaries, here's how much money we need. And you use that because clearly you don't need it, because you're using it to supplement all these other areas. You're using it to supplement and augment areas that weren't budgeted properly. I mean, somehow it wasn't accounted for, but you're using the salaries to offset that. And on top of that, whenever we look at a salary, that should be a fully wrapped rate. I mean, whenever you guys come and ask us for a budget to pay people, that should be a wrapped rate. It should include the salary. It should include the federal tax, the FICA, SUDA, all those other expenses that are included in paying and employing that person. And it would be probably, I would think, be prudent to assume whenever you're budgeting that that person's going to want health care. So then if they don't want it, okay, cool. Now you've got some money left over. But it looks like that's not happening. And then whenever they choose it, the money that you asked for salaries are now being moved over to make up these other expenses. And it kind of looks like one of these shell games. And that's, some of the stuff I'm good with, but it's just.
I hear what you're saying. We'll do this annually. You will get ready to do this annually. We attempt to budget the positions as best we can. I'll just give you one example that happens 100 times over with the school division every year since we have 700 plus employees. We will budget for a position, and we'll have an employee that is at step 25. I won't name any, I could go as far as naming a name. And we will find out after we budgeted for that position that that employee has left us, has gone to another school division, has retired. We will then turn around and likely hire somebody at step 12, 7, whatever it may be. And so we've already requested the amount, assuming that that person was going to assume that position. And then we will have an excess amount of funds because we've now hired somebody at a lesser step. That's just one example. There's many others that occur throughout the year with that number of employees. I certainly hear and understand what you're saying about we can bring to you a budget that assumes every single one of our employees has health care. About half of our employees use the health care. You can see, if we have 700 employees and about 350 of them use health care, we had another, whatever it is here, 7 or 8 that chose to use health care. If you would prefer that we present a budget to you where we assume every employee uses health care, it's going to be a substantial cost, an additional cost. I agree with you also on the assumption that we will have maintenance emergencies and maintenance concerns. And I've even spoken with our maintenance department. We can bring to you a budget that assumes those additional costs are going to occur throughout the year, and we can request those additional funds. We try not to do that because we try to bring you a budget that we think is as accurate as it can be. But that comes with the risk of saying there's going to be some variation in there if we get down to the level of looking at every single employee and how they change in the scale depending on what happens pre-budget request and post-budget request.
So I'm not asking you to artificially inflate. I'm asking for realism, and that's what. So if you're basing your 350 employees use healthcare and you're doing that, and that's what you use to establish a budget, then the reasoning you just described makes sense. What is that the healthcare isn't included in the salary request. And whenever you're asking for the budget to pay the people, that this is separate. That the health services, now what you're saying is that this health services only separate because it is an increase based on your budget?
I'm not following the question.
So the only reason our health services is broken out here was because of the additional requirement. not because it's separate from your salary line item.
And again, it's the only reason it's separated out here is to provide as much description to you all as we can in terms of the reappropriation of the funds in those subcategories.
Okay.
It's money that we currently have.
No, I understand that it's money you have and you're moving it from 250 or.
Yes, 250. Well, it's all within.
It's all within 250, but you're moving it from the salary to these items, and so whenever we get together, we'll look at the operations maintenance, and I'm not saying you need a budget for earthquakes because we don't get a lot of earthquakes. But I guess whenever I look at it, then I'll know.
We
more.
can take a look at maybe 5 years of longitudinal data and see what number of maintenance emergencies and/or issues have popped up that we haven't budgeted for over that time period, or something to that respect.
So whenever,
Mr. Stroud, can I interrupt you, sir?
Sure.
I'd like to give the other board members a chance to ask a question. I'll get back with you, sir.
Sure.
Okay. Mr. Sullins.
Actually, my questions don't relate to this. It's something after we're done here that I'd like to go.
Okay.
So I'm fine with ceding the time back.
Mr. Davis, Ms. Bender. Okay, go ahead, Mr. Stroud.
So I have a question. Do your employees have paid leave?
Yes.
How many days a year do they have paid leave?
It depends on what employee class they're in. Roughly, I think it's about 1 sick day a month. And then if you're a 12-month employee, you also have vacation. And then you also have, as a 12-month, or excuse me, even as a 10-month employee, you have 3 personal days annually.
Okay, so does your policy allow employees to carry leave forward?
You can carry your sick leave forward, and you can carry over 1 personal day of one personal day annually.
But not vacation days.
You can carry up to 30 vacation days. Not forward. You can carry a total of 30 vacation days.
Okay, so somebody starts out the year with 30 days, and then they earn
12, whatever it is,
12 days.
depending on your employee class.
So the end of December, they have 42 days. On 1 January, they go back to 30.
Yeah, our fiscal year ends on June 30th, but correct. Yes.
Okay. So, Dr. Boyd, so you spoke of the breakage. So you hire one person at this rate, or one person leaves at this rate, you hire another one at a less expensive rate. But so I'm looking at the budget transfer 2. One's office of the principal, 31,000. So why would 31,000 be going to the office of the principal?
This was, again, a healthcare expense and contract payout. We had somebody, I'd have to get back to you on the contract payout. I can't recall what that is, but I'll be happy to send it to you.
So somebody from the office of the principal left?
I believe so, yes, sir.
And so the only payout would be their vacation. And media services, 44,000. What is that?
That's it says here expense and healthcare option.
To what?
For a number of employees that were in that line that have chosen the healthcare option.
And physical services was 16,000 for increase of salary.
That's the new position that I mentioned previously.
Information services.
Expense and benefits. Somebody that chose it. So we changed our benefits provider this year, which also created a change in not in our healthcare provider, but in our healthcare services. So I think we'll probably have more of that this year than we've had in the past.
Executive administration.
Legal services.
So that was legal services was already budgeted in your budget.
And I believe this would be a request that has gone beyond the budgeted amount.
Mr. Dines, can you arrow down to the last page?
Yes, that's where I'm referencing.
Right there.
We go. Thank you.
So would it, I think my brain is starting to understand what you're doing here, is that even though it's a health expense, it's not coming out of a health line. You're allocating it to the office that incurred the increase.
Correct. Like FICA, like any other line item that's
Yeah.
be in that employee category.
Yeah. It'll just take me some time with a calculator to get it to make sense to me, but we can get
Understood.
together.
I'd be happy to.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
I approve the transfer, based on our discussion. It's internal to them, and they're not increasing our cost at this point based on.
We need a couple more people to approve it. We need a
But
motion.
understand, I'm just telling you.
Okay.
I recommend that the Board of Supervisors by motion approve the King George to request to reappropriate $1,091,860 from the instruction category 61100 to the social worker 61220, homebound 61230, media services 61320, office of principal 61410, executive admin 62120, information services 62130, fiscal services 62160, health services 62220, psychological services 62230, operations maintenance 64200 and 66200, debt service 67100, and technology 68200 as identified on the attached document.
Second.
Mr. Chairman,
Can you repeat that motion? No, I'm just kidding.
can I just clarify? I want to make sure I heard Mr. Stroud correctly. I think he said he recommended the board by motion do this, but in fact, you were actually making the motion to approve the transfer based upon what you just stated.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
All right, it's been seconded. Is there any discussion? By roll call, Mr. Davis.
Aye.
Mr. Sullins.
Aye.
Mr. Stroud.
Aye.
Mr. Bender.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. It was easier than last night, wasn't it?
Depends who you ask.
He has a couple questions if you don't mind entertaining them.
Yeah, and also I wanted to leave you guys with this is a pivotal time of year for enrollment numbers, and we're talking about preschool and elementary schools and things of that nature. So I did provide a copy of you guys of where we stand with enrollment numbers. Maybe be beneficial for you as you make really decisive decisions moving forward. So
You can leave that with the clerk. She'll distribute it to us. Mr. Sullins, you had a couple questions?
Yeah, please. No sweat. It has nothing to do with last night. First off, can you say again the dates and times of those tours?
yes, sir. It's this Friday. I believe that's is that the 23rd? Is that correct?
I think so.
23rd. And the time is 4 to 7. We will begin at the former King George preschool. We have our maintenance department that will be in attendance. We'll start the tour there. We're going to give you enough to see, but we're going to also kind of keep you out of areas that could be, quite frankly, dangerous to be in. So we'll start there from 4 o'clock. And then once we conclude the tour and answer everyone's questions at the King George preschool, then we'll head over to the King George Middle School and do the same.
Okay. And the other thing I was going to ask you if you could look into this. I apologize, I did not get the bus number, but one of the residents had approached me today and explained that her son is 6th grade, and on the bus, apparently, the 6th graders are having to sit on the floor because the 8th graders want their book bags into the seats next to them.
Okay.
And it was brought up with the bus driver, and the bus driver said, we're overcrowded anyway, don't worry about it. So if you look into that, I'd appreciate it.
Okay. If you have it, I don't mind calling the transportation guys. If you know what,
I'll see if I can get the bus number for you, and I'll email you tomorrow.
And I neglected to say that tour will also be Saturday from 1 to 3 as well.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
Okay.
If you would, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
I also, you just reminded me, I got some issues from constituents as well, where there are a lot older children sitting with younger children. So you might have like a 14-year-old boy sitting with a 10-year-old girl. And it's just the age difference and the appropriateness of what is available and conversation, things like that. Is there something, I know it's hard, it's some way to make sure that that type of thing doesn't happen because so people feel like their kids are going to be safe.
I addressed it today with our transportation director. It's actually, we are picking our high school students. So what we're talking about specifically is our elementary school students are only on the buses with our elementary school students. Our middle school students, as Mr. Davis has pointed out, begin as early as 11 years old, and our high school students go all the way up to age 18. So what we do now is we'll pick our high school students up first. And so those students will be directed to sit in the back of the bus. And then when we go pick up our middle school students, those students will be dedicated to the front of the bus. And I've passed that directive on to our transportation director to relay to our bus drivers just today.
Thank you for being proactive on that. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Dr. Boyd, I was just curious to know that the tours, is there a sign-off sheet that won't hold the schools or the county harmless?
Not at the moment, I don't believe, but we can certainly do that if that's the direction of the board. I don't know. We have done over the last couple days working with our maintenance department and the county maintenance department a very good job of, I believe, and I'm heading over tomorrow to take a look at the job they've done, but one that eliminates any hazards, any liabilities to the best of our ability. But any of us that have been in those buildings know that it'll be a challenge, but we'll make sure that we have those things under consideration. Yes.
Mr. Chairman, so I walked those buildings a couple days ago, and if you like, you're talking to council, we can put signs up at the entrance notifying any of the informants. We'll be providing masks and notifying the informants they could be subject to dust, mold, anything else like that. And we'll put the list out there so everybody will know the conditions that they're going into. We'll have those signs at the entrances. And I believe before the tours will begin, those will be verbally explained to the crowd itself.
That's good. Ms. Bender, you had something?
Yes, I'm glad Mr. Smolnik talked about it because I had directly asked. I've been in that middle school quite a bit, especially and there is quite a bit of mold. And for those that are sensitive to mold, I wanted to make sure we provided masks if people went in there that feel comfortable.
Did you fill out a form when you went in there?
No, I did not.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Boyd.
Good.
Thank you, sir. Bedtime.
Thank you.
Mr. Smolnik.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Two remaining items on my one's on the list. I added one other thing for the county administrator's report. The first is a CPMT appointment. There's a request to nominate Jesse Bryant to be appointed to the King George CPMT as an alternative representative for the King George County Schools.
So moved.
So, Mr. Stewart, can the county administrator make a motion?
This letter, there's a chair that came from the CPMT chair that I have it is included as a hyperlink to the packet. So this was a request from the CPMT chair to myself to appoint them.
I was saying so moved because he read it, so I will make the motion.
Okay.
So moved as.
Second.
Second.
Properly second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Alrighty.
The last remaining item, Mr. Chairman. In the previous meeting, the board asked me to identify and come back with a number on the remaining ARPA funds that the county has. So I've been working with Ms. Cobb and our departments to figure out what is left over. And as of this afternoon, the total remaining is $325,000, $309.69. So just a little over $325,000 remain. So that's what's left that has to be spent, allocated by December 31, 2024. I was not, have not been part. I've been on the outside of the budget or of the ARPA appropriations. If there's some specific direction that the board has on how these funds, the remaining funds, should be allocated, I'm open to suggestions. I know there are some items. It could be additional CIP funds. I know, one of the things that I've identified as a need is a fueling depot. What I've learned through the sheriff's department and through fire rescue, in the instance whenever there is a hurricane, our ambulances, our fire trucks, and our cruisers are in line at sheets trying to fill up behind everybody else. And I know there was an instance whenever I was over at the school bus garage, whenever there was a fire. It was prior to my start on the line by the dump. We had a couple police cruisers coming in there looking for fuel. So that's a suggestion that I have. I know that this was a previous item that Chief Moody had brought to you all that got put out to bid. It was in excess, so it never got funded. So those are just some options. I'm open to anything from the board. That's just something that is not on the CIP list that I've looked at. And just as an outsider coming in, I've identified that as a critical need. We don't want to have our ambulances or fire trucks or our police cruisers running out of gas or sitting in line hoping that there's going to be enough fuel left for them. So I'm open to any suggestions by the Board of Supervisors, but really the main intent is a little over $325,000 remains in ARPA.
Do you have any idea what a depot would cost? Sorry, sir. Do you have any idea?
I'm sorry?
Fuel depot?
So I had a discussion with our engineering folks today. My understanding, the project that came in over bid was $500,000. It was quite an elaborate system. Talking to Chief Moody, whenever they visited Fire Station 4 in Lenexa, New Kent County, if you can recall, there were two ASTs, above ground storage tanks, one for diesel, one for gasoline, some electric to run them, and some bollards. It's not, you can get by with a pretty basic system to be functional. So I believe the elaborate system that was not funded was on the magnitude of 500,000. We could start working and pricing out some more basic yet functional systems if that's the direction that I'm given.
I'd like to see you pursue that.
So I agree. I think it's important that we have some kind of a fueling system for those vehicles. Is it feasible to do a partnership with the base, because they have that on base, and maybe we could work a deal with them where we can pay them back for the fuel, if we need it, but in a contingency. Obviously, we won't want to go over there all the time. That could be a pain in the butt for all parties. But in an emergency, go there, and that would save this money for something else.
I can initiate those discussions with the base if you'd like me to. That is a good option.
So, Mr. Stroud, you had something on this matter?
Not anymore. Mr. Sullins just pretty much took care of it. But
so, is it the consensus of the board for the county administrator to explore the avenues that for a fuel depot or a partnership with Algren Naval Base?
Absolutely. And then if so, the funds have to be expended. So we don't want to wait too long. And if for some reason that doesn't work out, then I would agree that we look towards doing something, and it could be expedient. A containment system, have that above ground. The only thing with that is that, and I'm sure you already know this, is the way to monitor it, and that the MOGAS can't just sit like diesel can. So the other thing I would say for those ARPA funds is the demolition of the middle school. I think that was discussed before too.
That was already in the CIP.
It was, but was the CIP identified for the ARPA funds?
No.
Right. So, but we could award a contract and move forward with the middle school with the ARPA funds. That way they're expended before we lose them.
I think the concern is correct. The old middle school would be more than the ARPA funds, correct?
I believe that's correct.
So the consensus of the board is to him to look into the fuel depot, but he will come up with suggestions with the ARPA by next meeting. So we'll have a clear picture.
Understood, yes, sir.
Mr. Chair, one other thing I wanted to bring up as a possibility, and I know Mr. Smolnak went over to the old middle school and got to see what was in there in our storage, and I've been preaching this for years, is the possibility of a building where we could put our inventory and our plans and everything in one place instead of in every abandoned building we have.
It's fact.
Well, I just remembered as well that I had made a comment a few meetings ago about the sheriff's vehicles, because he's got some high dollar items out there that have been outside, and that's something that could be in consideration as well, because I think we could do it within the budget or close to it. So if you get short of things.
Would you like me to maybe look at these 3 different items, possibly, building for the sheriff for his mobile command unit, the fuel depot, those are the 2, and I heard also a building for storage of documents and whatnot. Do you want me to bring you back a couple different options?
So in my opinion, the sheriff building is not necessary. The crime scene vehicle and all they need is I don't know what you call them, awnings, or something to cover them, not the heat and air conditioning, because they're already plugged in.
I would
building. We don't want a building.
I think it could be a combination. You could have an enclosed space where things could be done inside, outside the weather whenever they need to go through. Don't they have to go through, like, whenever they get those vehicles that are being?
I think they need a process. There's a place for processing. I had a brief discussion with the sheriff, and this can also be on the next year's CIP also. So any of these projects can also be included in the CIP. So
we don't.
So wait a minute. So as far as processing their crime scenes, they have the vehicle, which they do that in, and then they have a processing unit at the sheriff's office for evidence, like if you need to super glue something and stuff like that. So they don't need a closed-in thing for their vehicles with a processing center. They already got the necessary items now. So I don't want to. My interest is for them to cover the vehicles so they'll, be out of the weather, but not to make a building.
Concur. Just want to make sure that whenever we're looking at it, that we don't have to do something that, we look back on. And if you're looking for somewhere to put that fueling area, if it doesn't work out on base, you may be able to co-locate it. It'll be under their watchful eye.
I would just start with the fueling thing and with Daubert and see if that would work. And if there's money left over, we can start looking. We got to the end of the year, we'll look at other avenues. Let's start there.
Alrighty. So now the secondary public comment to address meeting business matters. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes per person in order to afford everyone an opportunity to speak. Please provide your full name and district when submitting your public comment so it can be properly included in the public record. Is there anyone that would like to make public comment? Seeing none, Mr. Dines.
Mr. Chairman.
Anyone got anything already? Motion for adjournment.
I'll make a motion to adjourn to Tuesday, September 3rd, 2024 at 5:30 p.m. in the boardroom of the Rivercomb Building.
Second.
Roughly second. All those in favor?
Aye.
I'll slowly go to do it, so I'll beat him.
Chair votes aye. Adjourn. Thank you all.